I thought I would request you to share some thoughts on a similar but slightly different issue of the quality of data. We are talking about quality of medicines or quality of formulations, products, tablets, injections, whatever. The quality of the data that we generate in India, that's your domain, right? Now, I would request you to share with us. I'll very quickly tell you my background in this. I have spent my whole life. I'm almost pushing 70, so many of you will wonder what right do I have to talk about industry. I retired as a senior vice president with Aventis. In my earlier days, unlike you, sir, Pfizer, my own colleague left Rusell and joined Pfizer to do clinical research, Dr. Richa Chandra. We dared not do so-called clinical research because we were not sure about the data that we would get. So I told my head office in Paris, those days, I'm talking of the 80s. In Paris, I said, for heaven's sake, don't do drugs. I mean, don't do trials here because I cannot guarantee. Now, I'm sorry to say this. I'm sorry to acknowledge this. It's a fact. You know, in OPPI, I have said this earlier. If it is so, in today's situation where we have a big, hinterland of data generation available, and right up to parliament, people talking about Indian guinea pigs, etc., etc., where do we stand and what do you do and how would you play a role in putting India into the superpower pedestal? I hope, am I making sense? Yeah, thank you.
So I think this is one concern. Every second customer, which are global pharma companies, biotech companies, medtech companies, they ask us that is the Indian quality of data worse than, let's say, US or Europe or some of the more developed countries? And is FDA accepting this data? So the answer to this is that FDA has been accepting Indian data for the last 2 decades. So again, there may be situations where data quality was an issue. There may be situations where the trial was not done in a GCP compliant manner, but these incidents are few and far between. Again, if you look at some of the changes in the recent times as far as policy is concerned. So we are talking about looking at subject compensation. We are talking about registration of ethics committees, IRBs. We are talking about doing clinical trials only in 100-bedded government institutions or government-supported institutions now. We're talking about registering CROs and bioequivalence and bioavailability labs. So I think there is a lot of move from the government to clean up the system. DCGI is regularly doing inspections. I would say the quality of data from India is as good as it gets. Then the second part, I think we talked about technology. So again, there's a lot of electronic data capture. There's a lot of ways to kind of check data at the source, use electronic trial master files and electronic health records, etc., to ensure that the quality of data is good. So I would say this is a problem that we are tackling. We are in a very chaotic situation right now, but another 1 year or so, I think a better framework will evolve.
Okay, thank you. I think I'll just request you to share your views on one point before we throw open the whole thing to the floor, because I think we are running out of time. Well, we talked about pharma because we all have some pharma background, but pharma is not entire medicine. Actually, somebody said whether you are in a metropole, a megapolis, or whether you are in a remote area, you spend only 20% of your healthcare money on drugs. The rest is something else. Now, if that is the case, may I request you, sir, because we haven't really heard you that much, if you don't mind. Okay, you are a pharma man, fine, but non-pharma aspects of healthcare, where do we stand and where can we go and where should we go and how should we go? Can you kindly share this? After that, I would request the audience to come out with their questions.
Okay. Before I comment on your question, just to clarify some of the points which my fellow speakers talked about it. Yes, there are 20,000 companies, but if you look into the top 20 Indian companies, which may be constituting more than 70 or 80% of exports, the plant which produces exports, the same plant also produces the domestic medicines. Just many years back, maybe 15, 20 years back, there was 2 qualities, domestic quality and export quality. Today, for most of the top companies, there's only 1 quality, and there's no distinction between export or non-export. Number 2, I think some of us talked about some issues on some of the companies, some red flag here and there. My personal view is that it's media, but it has happened so much in India, so we are talking in. The fact shows that in the last 3 or 4 years, 8 companies have been given this. If you look at it, the America, and you go to the FDA websites, maybe America also has the same numbers. So it's not that, and because we are producing 1/3 of the tablets for the US, surely there is more inspection, more people coming in, and more kind of thing. So I feel as regards the manufacturing capabilities are there, there's really not much difference between US and India. Number two, as you rightly asked, today if you look at it, what the government is doing in, we talked about Spurious and Keval rightly said, and I was a part of that company who are part of that IP, and there's a political situation, there's a underworld, there's a local police, everyone gets united and therefore very little you can do it. Even if you look into the Bombay and today you look at the chemist and whatever is happening in. Today for the 5,000, 10,000 chemists, you have only 18 FDA inspectors. So unless you really go strongly on regulatory and create a fear, this is not going to stop. So I think the ball is in the court of the government than us. Now, when you look at it, the medicines, and look at it what could be done, to me actually, personally, I'm not really bothered whether we become superpower or China or US. What I would be bothered as an Indian is, can we become a healthy nation? Can we ensure today, if you go to the UP villages, Bihar villages, the people don't get medicines. Still you have the diarrhea and dysentery, which is unheard in the developed countries, and people are dying. What can, as a company, as a society, we can do to do that? And to me, if we could do affordable medicines, millions of the people, and have a system by which it could go. When you look into the medicines, I think the prices are quite affordable with the generic and others. I think what it requires is more number of the infrastructure, the doctors, the nursing staff, the hospitals, tertiary hospitals. When you look at it, and he would able to have better data on US 1,000 people versus a doctor versus India or China, we are way below. So I think if the government, and I understand that day before yesterday, the health minister said that after MBBS, you have to go for 1 year. So if we can create good conditions by which our doctors can go and work in the rural areas, nursing staff, use, there are school masters, the DICE or whatever the post office, can we do some system by which we can reach medicines to them for the common element? I think to me, we have done and we are the superpower. Yeah.
Very nice. Sir, you want to say something? Yeah, please.
Thank you. Let me peel another layer to what my good friend Ashok and Keval have talked about and give a little bit of the US perspective. The US perspective is upregulation of the regulatory system, sticking closely to compliance. And I think that in-house discipline, I am talking about the in-house right from board of directors to other management cadre within a pharma company, that in-house discipline, I think some socks rolling need to be required. That is absolutely necessary, I think, in India. I think I do not need to state of an anecdotal example to exemplify or to elaborate or even magnify what I am saying. So I think that in-house regulatory compliance standards, if they can be met, I think we will achieve the vision that all our pharma leaders are, I think, extending on this forum.
Thank you very much. Now I think it's time for, yes, please. I see two hands going up. Yeah, you got, yeah, good, good.
Well, I want to share some thoughts on this. You know, Ruchi mentioned about the challenge of spurious drugs going abroad. I just want to know, do you know where the source of those spurious drugs is? It's not India. It's a well-established fact that made in India drugs, spurious drugs, are not going from India. They're going from China. In fact, 3 years back, in one of the WHO conferences, when I was talking about telemedicine, I was asked this question. Telemedicine is fine, but why are you sending spurious drugs from India? I had no answer. But when I came back, I came to know that government is already seized of the matter, and all these drugs are manufactured in China. They get the money and we get the boot. But now, you know, a solution is on the anvil. Already we have suggested as a company a solution to the Commerce Ministry that all the drugs which go from here, right from the primary pack up to the tertiary pack, should have a non-clonable ID. Of course, I mentioned about it in my presentation. That non-clonable ID can track and trace the medicine right up to the last point from the source of manufacture. So, you know, the solution is there. Technology, as you rightly pointed out, has a solution. And then coming back to the other part, exports part, as rightly pointed out, 20 leading companies are exporting 80% of the medicines. And generally with those companies, these spurious drugs issue is not there. And that's probably why the US is fine with our medicines. And there is no hue and cry about it. But yes, internally in India, we need to check this problem of spurious drugs, because these people are killing more Indians than other people. Thank you.
So, before commenting on what you just said, let me tell you that I have read all of your presentations on World Wide Web before I started practicing telemedicine myself.
My presentation.
Yeah, your presentation from
Thank
TCIL, telemedicine, and so on and so forth. So I am I'm really happy to have you here and to probably discuss this thing with you. So two things on what you just talked about. So I am very well giving this benefit of doubt that maybe it is made in India and not actually manufactured in India. But the point where all of us came together was the discipline. Believe it or not, the discipline is not there, whether it's regulations, whether it's policy, and so on. Also, as a public health expert who has worked on 250 mHealth projects so far in 16 countries, including India, 90% of them in India, and I was graduated from India. I'm an Indian American too, just like Mr. Hariwala. And I went through John Hopkins, went through Georgia Tech, went through whatever I'm still studying, by the way. I have realized this thing that in India something is going wrong. When government tries, we all become very happy. When you actually go to the village level and you try and find whether it is happening, it is happening. But when you look for a change, it doesn't happen. So there is something that is going wrong. If medicines are coming, if medicine are not spurious, if medicine is being undertaken or consumed by people who were actually suffering from these ailments, why can't we claim that we actually brought the morbidity or the mortality down? So there is something going wrong. We do kind of relate it with a lot of factors, including counterfeiting. Second thing is, 90% of the time I have seen that chemists already know that what they are selling is a spurious drug. So gauging the drug or finding the drug out at their level is not a solution. It has to be at the patient's level. And as you rightly said, in 2012, 2011, we have heard that government came with an order where there will be a non-clonable ID that can be texted to a certain number, which will tell whether it's authentic or not. My question is, with syrups, syringes, trocanters, everything, it makes sense. What about a paracetamol strip? If that number goes, I can very well tell that the strip is authentic. But what if I buy one pill? And over-the-counter drugs, there are plenty of instances where we don't even take a prescription for antibiotics. Forget about paracetamol. So why government is not trying to create something which is local, which can be done in low cost, and which doesn't require, maybe not mHealth. So I studied Raman spectroscopy in physics lab long before, actually, 12, 15 years back. And if such centers can be opened up at any regional level to figure out whether the drug is spurious or not, with wavelength tracking and so on, I think that solves the purpose. The second step, as you rightly done, non-clonable IDs. The third step could be something else. So what we are saying is that the regulations and policies that we are playing with as of now are not up to the mark as they should be in India and for outside the world as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have time for maximum 2 questions. Maybe a lady there, please, if you don't mind. You raise your hand, madam? Yeah, please.
Hello. This is a question because today's session is about India's progress as rising superpower ahead of China and US. So I would like to know, because many of you all have worked in US, is US really a superpower in healthcare? And if it is, then why? And why India cannot supersede it quickly enough? For me, if we call India, I think 75% population lives in rural. And unless we don't have some Max or Apollo reaching rural areas, we really have not achieved the power. Superpower would be long ahead. And in terms of reach, affordability, and dependability, where do we stand and how do we achieve better? How do we go ahead?
I think that's a very loaded question. And let me address the first part where you called United States as a superpower, and is it a healthcare superpower? In my opinion, United States is a super spender on healthcare. I don't really think that the United States, for example, my own specialty of cardiac surgery, that the results are anything better than in India. If you look at infant mortality,